બીજું સેમ છે જણાવતો અને રવિવારે સાંજના પ્રોગ્રામમાં હું આવવાની છું.
All right, so I'm going to mute all the folks. So
mute us
we
all,
have,
yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like an airport lounge in the background.
Thank you.
So, Paul, I'm going to have you ask you to unmute, please. Go ahead. So that way. All right, folks, welcome to the oGoing Business Roundtable and Fireside Chat. Today is May 16th, 11 a.m. Pacific time. I appreciate everybody joining in. I'm your host today, Sanjay Dalal, the founder and CEO of oGoing. As some of my friends said, we have been oGoing since 2009, early 2010. So it's been a fantastic ride until now. We are in our technically 13th year, actually 14th soon, right? So, and oGoing has had a tremendous journey, and myself included, of course. We have built this small business community for business owners, entrepreneurs, startup founders, consultants, coaches, for all of them to join and share their stories. We have over 125,000 members now, fully homegrown, fully designed here in California with a lot of feedback from my entrepreneur and good friends here who have joined today. And we still keep going. So, we are the as they say, the anti-network in some sense. We love our business owners. We love our business community where, they can join, they can share their stories and ultimately find ways to collaborate. So I again thank everybody to join us. As Coach Steve Smith and I were chatting earlier, we started our fireside chats, at Sagar Fine India Cuisine Restaurant, which was on MacArthur Boulevard in Newport Beach. I want to say 7-8 years ago now, and we go back and forth between online and face-to-face. We do love the Zoom platform. It's the ease of use, and everybody likes to join and share their stories. So really appreciate that. And today we're going to do that as well. We have a few participants. So what I would love for everyone to do is do a quick intro. Let's keep it 30 seconds or less. So think of it as your elevator pitch. Before I introduce our guest for the day, Paul Barry, and have an amazing conversation with him. So I would just start with Coach Steve Smith. Coach, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Sanjay, thanks for setting this up today. My name is Steve Smith. My company is Growth Source Coaching, and I provide coaching to either business owners, company executives, and now I'm doing quite a bit of management team training. I'm located here in South Orange County. Great to be here. Thanks again, Sanjay.
Thank you, Coach. Coach Steve has also been a great mentor for me over the years, as well as a great friend in Orange County. So thank you, Coach, for joining as well. Bruce Webb. Bruce, how are you? Go ahead, please. Please go and unmute your mic when you guys folks, so you can hit the space bar. Go ahead, Bruce.
I'm Bruce Webb. I represent a couple of very unique loan opportunities. One's 3.25% over 15 years. The other's net 5% over 4 years, and covers any kind of loan from any idea, any type of loan from 50,000 with no maximum.
Thanks, Bruce, for joining. And Bruce has also been a very, he's been a very active participant of oGoing Business Roundtable and Chat. So thanks, Bruce, for joining. We have David Gertie. David, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Good morning, Sanjay, and thanks for having us. We're commercial real estate company, Aspect Real Estate Partners in Orange County. I have 2 partners, and we've been doing this about 30 years, and we do all types of real estate brokerage, investment, development, and all product types.
Okay, great. Thanks, David, for joining. Elva Barajas. I hope I'm saying the name correctly. Elva, go ahead.
Yes, that's correct. Hi, I'm Elva. I'm with Corporate Tax Incentives. Corporate Tax Incentives is a tax credits and incentives consulting firm. We help businesses across the nation to really maximize their tax credits and incentives, and we're based out of the Sacramento area in Northern California.
Oh, excellent, Elva. Thanks for joining this morning. I appreciate it. We have Flo, please. Flo Elkins. Flo, go ahead.
Greetings, happy Tuesday. I'm Flo Elkins. I am in the Los Angeles, California area. I am a fitness trainer and wellness coach, as well as a rowing coach. And I work with women 40 and over, and I also teach indoor rowing to middle school and high school students.
Oh, that's fantastic. Rowing, that's, if a quick question, Flo, did you grow up in Northeast or I had to ask, sorry.
No, I grew up in Los Angeles.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for joining and good to see you.
Thank you.
We have Gaurav, who I recently met. Gaurav Sabarwal. Gaurav, go ahead, please.
Hey guys, how are you? So I am building a business called Joy of Performing. We're in the space of creating high performing teams. So we are obsessed with OKRs and how they can use in business for business and people performance. And with that, how do you align the CFR, the communication, feedback, recognition to create that ongoing high performance culture in the organization? So we've created a SaaS B2B software for that. And now we are about 30 customers in and trying to scale that and, taking Sanjay's help with that too.
Thanks, Gaurav. Great to see you this week. I appreciate you joining. We have Janki Purohit. Janki joining us all the way from India. Janki, go ahead, Janki.
Hi.
Go ahead, introduce yourself, Janki. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. This is Janki here from Python Innovations, India. And I'm doing the business development for our company and like connecting with oGoing since last 1 month. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Janki, for joining. We have James Hines. James, go ahead, please.
Hi, all. Hopefully it's a little loud. I'm taking a walk outside as we talk. My name is James Hines. I'm with Brand Wrangler, which is a venture studio in Rely Capital, which is a syndicate on Angel List. We focus on companies that are leveraging technology to grow, expand their business opportunities across a variety of sectors. I'm based here in San Jose, California. Pleasure to attend.
Awesome, James. Enjoy the walk, and I'm sure you'll enjoy a roundtable as well. Thanks for joining. Kamal, go ahead, please. Kamal, let me get the last name correctly.
Ruparelia.
Ruparelia. Go ahead, Kamal.
Yeah, Sanjay, thanks for invite. And I'm Kamal Ruparelia. I'm interim CEO at Infuse Inc. We are a IoT software development company based in East Bay Area. And we develop a custom software. And lately, we are also investing highly into creating a software ecosystem for small EV in India.
Oh, excellent, Kamal. Good to reconnect. Thanks for joining. Yes.
Sure.
Kumu Gupta, go ahead, please. Kumu is out on the east, northeast side. Kumu, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So, and I'm high-tech person by background. I have my own consulting and also a former Bay Area for many years, but I'm involved now. And I just launched, as Sanjay knows, a new initiative called Global Peace Secretariat, and I'm toying with the idea of making it a formal nonprofit, but I'm not sure, so trying to figure out,
Kumu, I think we had some issues with your mic, so we'll come back to you. But we would definitely like to hear your story. So hold on there, yeah. We have Parul Brown. Parul, go ahead, please.
Self-pleasure, nothing to do with your sexuality.
Okay, that was interesting. All right, folks, I apologize for that. I have no idea what that was. Okay. Okay. Ruben, go ahead, please. Sorry about that.
Well, it's hard to top that, I guess. Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know what? That's the trouble with the internet nowadays, right? You don't always know what you get. My name is Ruben Alvarez, and I own a company called Stay Connected OC. I've had it for 23 years now, and it's basically a newsletter that goes out to the influential and grassroots people here in Central Orange County. I got about 2,000 or 20,000 subscribers. Like I said, 23 years in publication. Recently, I won a national award through the National Association of Hispanic Publishers, as well as being ranked #1 in Southern California by them. And then also, and the reason I'm here is that there's another third-party company called Latinolytics, who has ranked my list at over $1 billion. And so I am looking at ways to leverage that. Of course, it's on paper, but you know what? The people that are on my list are the movers and shakers here, Latino movers and shakers here in Orange County. So when I put the word out, I put the word out, and I want to see how I can leverage that now into bigger and bigger clients for advertising. Thanks.
Thanks, Ruben. That's great, and congrats on the expansion and the valuation. That's pretty amazing. We have Sanjeev Kumar. Sanjeev, go ahead, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the invite, Sanjay. So my company name is Texio Global Private Limited. I'm from Bangalore, India. So we provide cloud solutions, DevOps solutions, and we build custom software. So we are kind of a startup. We're in our 8th month of operations now. Thank you.
That's great, Sanju. Thanks for joining. Let me make sure I got everyone here. Shailesh Yadula. Shailesh, go ahead, please.
Hey, Sanjay.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm part of Thai SoCal. I keep seeing your emails. I was hoping to join one of your sessions for a really long time. Finally made it.
Thank you.
I thought the topic was quite interesting, so I thought I'll join and listen to what Paul has to say.
Excellent. Shailesh, if you want to quickly introduce your company or what do you do?
I'm in the product management space. I'm a director of product management right now in a private firm here in El Segundo.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and I'm also planning to start something on my own.
Excellent. Thanks, Shailesh, for joining. And yeah, I'm looking forward to interacting with Paul as well quickly. Yep. Arthur, go ahead, please. Arthur, quickly introduce yourself. Arthur Tassinogo, yeah.
I am here. It's good to see you, Sanjay. It's been a long time, especially since I moved to Florida about 6 years ago, so we don't really get to see one another. So what I do is I'm a coach, an author, I'm a speaker, I consult with companies. I'm looking to, right now, what I'm looking to do is to actually, my last book is really a workbook, and my books are all about how we help each other and how to be, and for leaders to be better leaders. We know that there's a lot of dysfunction in the world, but there's also dysfunction in the C-suite as well, with actually people learning to become more of a leader than a manager. So I try to help companies do that. But my last book is really a workbook all around helping you find yourself. And what that means is, we all grow up in the world having certain triggers based on our childhood, whatever that is. And we learn things from our parents and from school and from other people and peers at work and so forth. So it's really, the book is to help you understand, why do I do the things I do?
Yep.
And when I do those things, how does that affect me and how does it affect everybody else in the world? So I'm looking to maybe get some help with turning this workbook into a course, an online course for people, so that we can be better humans. How's that? And we can create
that idea,
more peace and love in the world. So that's where I come from.
love everything about what you just said, Arthur. I would love to have you as our future fireside chat speaker as well. So let's reconnect and discuss it offline as well. Congress on the book.
Thank you.
Love it. Yeah. Let me see. I hope I didn't leave anyone out. Dylan, go ahead, please. Dylan Dow. Dylan.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome, Dylan.
Hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
About the video. Can you see me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I just joined, so I didn't hear much about other people.
No worries. Introduce yourself, Dylan. Go ahead, please. Dylan, your mic is on mute. Unmute the mic, please.
All righty.
Much better now. Okay.
Okay. So I'm a zero tech entrepreneur. Just got back from Asia. I think your event was on the list. I joined while I was in Asia, and here exploring some projects with AI. I'm looking to build like an AI ecosystem, and just researching. I think that's something interesting that we're going to explore very heavily. That's it. If anybody here is involved in AI, I'd love to talk more with you guys about it. If there's any joint ventures to be had, I'm located in Huntington Beach area in Orange County.
Excellent.
Been around here for a long time. Started in companies in '97. Had a couple exits. So very interesting times now. Just getting back into the game, and I really love to explore AI and development on its full capabilities. That's it.
Absolutely, Dylan. I'm sure that's a hot topic with all that's happening. So we'll come back on that for sure. Thanks for joining. Yeah.
Sure, no problem.
Sanela, go ahead. Sanela, long time. How you been? Unmute your mic, Sanela.
Hi, everyone. Sanela here in North Orange County in La Habra, a little beach town. Just kidding. La Habra is not a beach town, but and great to see everyone. It's been a while, but finally I am back on oGoing, and I'm a problem solver. I help people reduce stress and sleep better at night. And I'm the owner of a full service services basically called Sanela Solutions. And yeah, I'd love to chat a little bit more and learn about everybody and see, you know, what everyone is doing. So we can simply figure out how can we be of a better support to one another, and how we can connect one another with information, businesses, you know, people, because they say it's not who you know, it's who do you know that knows someone who has what you need or is actually willing to connect you with them because of what you are offering and what you have. So Sanela here in North Orange County.
Thanks, Sanela. Great to see you. Welcome back. Appreciate you joining. Vatsala, go ahead, please. Vatsala Upadhyay. Vatsala, please, go ahead.
Hi, and like it was said that I'm here to know the people who know someone better. I'm here to be inspired by all of you. I'm an application portfolio architect, IT professional, of course, and I'm from Michigan. I do work with Sanjay on a nonprofit organization called American Society of Engineers of Indian Origin. So, and the national board with Sanjay Dalal on with that. And I also am the president of another nonprofit organization which helps the domestic violence victims. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, Vatsala, great to see you, and thanks for joining. And yeah, ASCI is something we do here local in SoCal as well. And I'm sure you've probably seen some of my posts on that. Vandana Patil. Vandana, go ahead, please, quickly.
Hi, yeah, I live in San Jose. I'm and I have my own staffing and consulting company. This is the first time I just got the message and I thought, okay, think big, grow big. So I just wanted to know trying to understand what this is about, and if it can help me or others in this group. That's about it.
Absolutely. Vandana, good to see you after a long time, and thanks for joining.
Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely. So it is our topic of the day: think big, grow big, and ultimately execute big. How do we get there? And sharing with us today his insights from Southern California, Paul. Right, you're here.
I am. I sound Australian, but I'm very much in Santa Monica.
Excellent, excellent. And I'm going to put the spotlight on Paul for now. And, very profound thing you shared with me on LinkedIn, as well as, he said that nobody of significance, I don't know if it's a quote by Paul or a quote that he really loves, nobody of significance ever changed the world on his or her own, or I would say on their own. And Paul, you believe in that? What's the thought process there? Go ahead, please.
Yes, so I can't imagine I'm the only person in the world to have ever said that, but that is something that I say. Yeah, I mean, I got to the point where I had to convince myself and the world that I was capable of doing everything by myself. And then you realize that line that is very true. If you want to go far, go alone. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so my new kind of motto is the rising tide raises all boats, because as long as we are not just going into a community and just selling our stuff to everybody and then disappearing, as long as we are open to what do I know that can help everyone and what do they know that can help everybody, then everybody wins, as long as everyone's contributing something to that group, to that community. So it's great hearing everybody talk about what they do, and everybody is interested and everybody is open to sharing their own stuff. So it looks like a great community you've put together, Sanjay.
Thanks, Paul, for joining. And in way of introduction, in his TEDx talk, Paul encourages swimming across the currents. Not a lot of us love swimming across the currents. Much alone swimming with the currents. But he says, let's break this. Breaking the patterns. There you go. One more thing. And poking holes, in sacred cows. Not a big fan of that statement, but that's because I come from
wrong crowd. Sorry.
Anyways, in order to create the desired transformation in one's life, and using the principle of transformation that he has discovered in over 20 plus years career as a writer, actor, director, and coach for stage and screen. I guess we're going to ask him about some of that. He helps purpose-driven coaches, entrepreneurs, consultants, owners grow their influence, authority, engagement, and reach they need in order to create greater impact and fulfill their missions of elevating the world in a very positive and meaningful way. Coach, please go ahead and mute your mic. You haven't done that, so we can all enjoy conversation with Paul. But Paul, today's talk is on something like that. But go ahead, please. You've done many different things. Is there a way for you to figure out what you really needed to do at this point in life, or is it a journey? What was the thought process?
Well, it's definitely a journey. I started out, I did my first acting class when I was 12 years old. And then I only went to university when I was 18 and I studied acting there. Then I was a professional actor for 16 years. I was also teaching acting for film and TV for up to about 25 years. I was directing stage, directing screenwriting, ran the largest video production company of its kind in the world back in Australia. I moved over here, ran it from over here. At that point, I stumbled upon the Steven Spielberg quote, which was dreaming for a living, which is the name of my business. Yep. And he said, I don't dream at night, I dream at day, I'm dreaming for a living. And I was working with actors and screenwriters and filmmakers, and they were all doing crappy part-time jobs to get by. And I thought, well, there's two other distinct options. One is that if you're doing work that you don't like, or that, is just working, driving Lyft or Uber or working in a cafe, then effectively you could be doing any job to make money part-time. So why don't you do that online? Why don't you get into SEO? Why don't you get into copywriting? Why don't you get into putting a course online? Or there is something that you actually do love, and it's filmmaking, it's writing, it's art, it's design, whatever it is. So why don't you monetize that? So I started working with those people to help them generate a revenue online. And then after about a year of doing that, I realized I'm still working with the same people I'd been working with for years, and I needed a clean break. So that's when I started working with coaches, consultants, professional speakers. And then I had a lot of business owners contact me, and I was kind of saying no to most of them because they didn't fit into my niche of coaches, consultants, and professional speakers. This is around the time I did my TEDx talk in 2019. And then in 2021, I went back to Australia. Both my parents were very unwell, and unfortunately we lost our mum, and my dad had to have major surgery. But after almost a year of being back in Australia, I came back here and I said, you know what? I could effectively wipe the slate clean again. I can build on what I have, but I'm very much a fan of wiping the slate clean and starting from scratch. That's what I used to say to actors. It's what I say to business owners. If you have a way to wipe the slate clean, and then anything that you have that is useful will come straight back, and anything that's not useful will disappear, and so it should. So I wiped the slate clean, and I coached myself for the first time ever. I said, what would I say to one of my clients who is a coach or a consultant or someone helping people grow businesses? And I said, I need to get absolutely 100% crystal clear on who that dream client is, not just a client, not just who could I serve, but the dream client. And the dream client came to me after everything that had just happened in Australia, is that life is very short. So for me, it has to be working with purpose-driven people, not just people who have the purpose of making a living. They have to be purpose-driven. Number two is they have to be big, big thinkers, or they want to be. They're not scared by it. They're very excited by it. And the third part is not just people who begrudgingly accept that they need help. They're excited about getting help to grow big, and they're excited specifically about my particular brand of help. At that point, I never needed to do another sales call as long as I live, because people self-identify and they say, how can we work together? Whereas before, I found myself trying to convince people to be the right client for me, or convince myself to be the right coach or consultant for them. And it's just painful, because then you get into the relationship and you realize, what am I doing here? I don't want to be here. They're not my dream client, and I'm not their dream coach or consultant. So that was a pretty big change for me. And since then, it's amazing how many more referrals you get when people go, oh, you should work with that guy. He's a big purpose-driven thinker who helps people who are excited about getting help. Great, fantastic. What does he do? Helps grow businesses. He helps them think big and execute big and grow on that. Helps them with their teams, helps them with their software, helps them with technology, helps them with branding. But those are just the whats and the hows. But the why is because we are here to change the world in a significant way, and nobody does that on their own. And if anyone disagrees with that statement, we wouldn't be a good fit anyway.
Understood. So, that's a very interesting point you made. Purpose-driven business owners, entrepreneurs, CEOs. Now we have purpose-driven companies, right? Who all talk about, beyond the fact that they build the products and services and make profits, what else they're doing, in the community. What is their, what is the mission, if you may, beyond just the profits that they make. Now, what is the right time to embrace that purpose, if you may? I mean, the question is, how can entrepreneurs cultivate that mindset that enables them to be purposeful, to think big, and envision bold goals, right, for their business? Because you can't lead with purpose until you have developed something of value, right? So it's kind of like a little counterintuitive, or can you do both at the same time? Maybe enlighten us on that.
Well, I don't know how controversial it is, but I believe that the definition of an entrepreneur is someone who is putting that first, taking an exceptional risk that other people aren't, financially, with their time, sacrificing. So for me, I don't understand why anybody would run a business without starting with purpose. Because once you start a business, especially if you grow that business and you don't have a purpose, you're going to plateau at some point, and there's no way you're going to grow. And if you're not growing, you're atrophying. And so for me, all I see is just millions upon millions of businesses out there that did not start with a purpose, or they lost their purpose very quickly when they found themselves stuck in the trenches trying to, ward off all of the problems that come. And so, like, one of the most important things about thinking big is you need the space. So that's the first thing I would say to anyone about thinking big, is you need the space. I've got clients right now, and I've told them straight away, there is no way in the world that I'm going to work with you to show you how to do what you're currently doing better. I'm going to show you how to do it without you having to do it at all, because I want your hands to be completely free and my hands to be completely free. I'm not going to do the work for you. We both need to have our hands completely free. And I said, you got to risk getting bored. You got to risk sitting there thinking, why am I paying everybody else to do stuff when I have all the time in the world to be doing it? Now you've created that vacuum. It's an incredibly scary place to be, but only now you've created that vacuum can that vacuum suck into it the big idea. There's no way you can grow into a new space if there's no space. And so the very first thing is you need space. And that's the scariest thing, because you think, Hugh Jackman told a great story about Wolverine, which I think was the first film he produced. Yep. And he said, oh, it was fantastic. We're standing there. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. It's cold. All the crew is standing around. All the cast is standing around. I'm so excited about the script, about everyone. And suddenly I went, what the hell is everyone doing standing around? Because he was producing it, right? So he had the space there to think, well, let's get to work. But I always use the analogy that the first AD, the first assistant director on a film set or a TV show, is equivalent of what I do. And the CEO of the company I'm working with, or the individual I'm working with, is effectively the director. And I, as a director, when I worked with amazing firsts, their job was to empty me of all tasks that I needed to do. I would have an idea, they would take it from me, they would give it to the crew, and they would turn back and they'd say, what do you want to do next? Their job was to constantly vacuum out my brain until there was nothing in there except space to get inspired. Now, there is no way in the world that you can possibly be my definition of an entrepreneur and have your brain full of stuff that you need to have. You need to have at least a chunk of space, which is space, because then you can't innovate, you can't grow, you can't be different, you can't be a big thinker. So the first thing, absolutely, is space. You need space.
How do you create that space, Paul?
You give every job to everyone else. Richard Branson was asked, what's the best advice you ever got in business? And he said, early on, someone said to me, the first thing you need to do is find someone to run your business better than you. As soon as most people think, well, I'll make enough money for me. And then when I'm comfortable, by which point, oh, I've got a few more expenses. And but when I'm comfortable, I'll spend a little bit of money on something else. I just had a discovery call with a couple of guys who are running a screen printing and embroidery company. Yeah. And they agreed that they needed to spend at least 5% of their gross revenue on marketing and advertising, which is a small amount, but they agreed that. And then I said, so how much is that? And they said $500. I'm like, I think your math is going a bit wrong, because you're making a lot more than that. They weren't willing to invest that to get the help to get their hands free. Some people are addicted to doing the work in the front lines. I'm not. I'm up here in the plane watching what's going on, saying, go there, don't go there, watch out for that. There are landmines, but there's no point for me being in the trenches. And there's no point for the business owner being in the trenches. And if you're constantly in the trenches, I'd argue you're not an entrepreneur. You don't have space to be an entrepreneur.
You don't have space.
You're a business owner, but you're not an entrepreneur.
That's a very good point, Paul. And that takes us to the next big question is, you kind of shared some of this, what are some of the strategies or approaches that entrepreneurs can use them effectively, to execute on their ambitious plans and ultimately turn them into a reality, right? Because it's great to have a big dream and a big plan, saying this is what I want to be number 1 or 2 or 3 in the space in the next 5 years. But then how do you go about doing that?
Well, it's interesting you say in the next 3 to 5 years. So, and this may touch on some questions that we get to later on, but a big thinker doesn't think in 3 to 5 year terms. A big thinker is Elon Musk, who thinks in 1, 3, and 5,000 year terms. So you don't have to think in an interstellar fashion to be a big thinker. That's a Goliath, whether you like that man or you don't like that man, there is no disputing that when he thinks about the future, he thinks about 1,000 years plus into the future. We don't need to, but if Kodak had thought more than a few years into the future, if they'd thought 100 years into the future, Kodak might be the biggest digital company in the world producing cameras and phones and all sorts of things. But of course, we know what happened. If Blockbuster did the same thing, and it's a cliche example we use all the time, if the taxi industry had done it, you wouldn't have Lyft and Uber. The taxi industry would be Lyft and Uber. So we have to think more than just surviving ahead. These guys I just spoke to, they were like wanting to get the next job. And I'm thinking, how do you dominate the market globally? Oh, well, we don't want to be global. Okay, do you want to be national? Do you want to be regional? Do you want to do the 4 blocks around your building? Like, you're not thinking big enough. I'm sorry, I can't work with you because you're not thinking big enough. Someone can help you run Facebook ads to get 10 more customers in the next week, but that's not going to be me. We need to think bigger. We need to throw the arc. I used to say to actors, you don't get a rope over the branch by aiming at the branch. You have to aim well above the branch. And most people aren't even aiming for the branch. They're not even aiming. I wrote a whole book for actors called Choices because actors were never taught how to make choices. They were doing stuff, but they weren't choosing stuff. Choosing, by definition, means you look at you research a range of options using a whole bunch of tools and techniques. And then once you look at those, you make the determination, which is the one I'm going to try. And then if this is the final take, which is the one I'm going to use for the final take? And one of the great acting teachers of all time used to say that the talent is in the choices. That's Lee Strasberg, who taught Marlon Brando and all of those guys. The talent is in the choices. And the entrepreneur is the one who takes the risks, makes the choices, and lives and dies based on what happens. You look at Elon Musk talking about when he was down to almost nothing with Tesla, and now he's the richest guy in the world. Well, lots of people who ended up on the waste heap with a similar story. Well, he didn't. But as Mark Cuban said, the companies that he has invested in that have been the most successful have been the biggest, the most different, the boldest. He'd said, not every big, bold, and different business I invested in succeeded, but every one that succeeded was big, bold, and different. Because faster, better, and cheaper is just a race to the bottom of a quagmire. So that's where I think you have that space initially. You need to create that space. You need to have a culture within yourself, but then a culture within your team and a culture within the community of the people you hang out with of risk. Oh, well, if tomorrow I have no money, oh, well, I'll stay on a friend's couch.
Yeah.
Problem is, you start to have success and you start to lock in a mortgage and you lock in a family and you lock in this and you lock in that and the kind of car you want. Now you have a whole bunch of things that you think you need in order to continue, but you don't. You need nothing. You need to treat yourself like the undercover boss or the secret billionaire or whatever, those kind of shows where someone goes out and starts from scratch and says, knowing what I know now, if I were to wipe the slate clean, how can I grow? Because if we don't wipe the slate clean, at least in our imaginations, at least on a weekend retreat, at least while we're falling asleep, and imagine what is possible, then all we're doing when we try and create new things is we're taking a big square peg and we're jamming it into a very small hole, a circular hole. And so we have to cut things off to make it fit. And that's a terrible way to try and think big and grow big.
Well, that's a fascinating thing you just said. I mean, I think a lot of us have been rationalized to think, near term. And one of the ways you're saying, if you really want to think big, and part of it is could be our safety mechanisms, could be because we have families, we have young children, whatever be the reasons be, right? Maybe we need a steady source of income. But what you're saying is if you really want to get out of that, you really have to think for the next 100 years and say, okay, what is it that I'm going to do today to achieve something impossible? And actually on Elon Musk's thing, there was this conference going on, the annual pilgrimage, if you may, to Omaha, Nebraska with Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. And one of the participants asked them the question on Elon Musk now that what he has done versus what their earlier thoughts were. I don't need to share what they said earlier about it. But one of the things very interesting they said is, we can't be like Elon. Elon tries to make impossible things happen.
Yeah.
We like to do easy things. And, of course, they're both in the 90s now. And of course, both of them have been immensely successful. A lot of respect for both Buffett and Munger. But they very much say that he's of a different mold. He goes after the impossible problems and has a knack for solving them. Now, of course, not all of us have that, what Elon has, that drive or that X factor or whatever you call it, to make those things happen. So from that point of view, for everyday entrepreneurs, if you may, then how important is goal setting for us, in the process of, sure, in our own spectrum for thinking big, executing big, and growing big, right? And what are some practical tips for us, if you may, for setting and achieving those goals, even at a local level, which could still be pretty large for us?
Sure. So first of all, I'd say ordinary, usual, common are not words that can be used in the same phrase as thinking big. So, so by definition, Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett and all of those safe investors have also taken phenomenal risks. They just did it with everybody else's money.
Exactly.
Whereas Elon Musk, at first at least, would have you believe he did it with his own money. That's not true. But those other guys, they were taking risks. They were taking calculated risks. At any point, the stock market can crash and they can lose $400 billion of other people's money. But I would say, let me give you another example or another couple of examples. So Elon Musk is obviously the biggest, most obvious, most current example. But when I really started thinking about thinking big the first time, there was a woman, I think she was from, say, Michigan or somewhere, growing up in a small town in Michigan. She moved to New York. She got into health and wellness and fitness and diets and so on, and started working with a bunch of her clients. Then she'd go back to a small town in Michigan, and then everybody was obese and had hypertension and diabetes and heart disease and strokes. And then she'd go back and she'd work with the clients, and she'd come back. And after years of doing this, she's like, what am I doing? Like, I'm saving lives here. And then I'm going back and I'm pretending that everything's okay and everything's normal because the average American is obese or got heart disease or hypertension. No. Forget average. What's the big idea? And I say to clients, what's the big idea? I know what you do. I even know how you do it. I even maybe know why you do it. But what's the big idea? And this girl's big idea was to say, I'm going to go back to my little town in Michigan or wherever she was, and I'm going to get the town to lose a combined 10-ton worth of weight or whatever it was. She worked out the number of people with a particular problem with weight, and they had excess weight and it was killing them. And she was like, well, if everybody lost 20 pounds each, and I multiplied that by the number of people, the total addressable market in this particular area, it might only be 100 people, then you calculate that and you say, okay, how many tons is that? Great, that's what I'm going to lose. Well, guess what? That's thinking locally, but on a global level, she was able to get press all around the world. She was able to galvanize her local community to believe that they were doing some massive thing that the world had never seen before. Yep. All she was doing was helping a bunch of people lose a bunch of weight. But when the way she framed it, the way she phrased it, the way she sold the idea, it got absolute wall-to-wall international publicity and PR. Now, another thing that happens almost every couple of years, some country, it'll be Italy, it'll be Spain, it'll be somewhere else, says we're selling houses for $1. We're selling an entire beautiful house in a rustic,
very tempting ads.
That's right. Now, the small print, the fine print is you also must live here. You also must invest a minimum of $50,000 into the building and the upkeep of the house. You can't immediately sell it to someone else. But the idea, that's local. That's just local real estate people saying, we've got property that we believe is valuable, but what's the point even trying to sell it for $20,000, this dilapidated little thing in a village in Italy? No one even knows it's here. So is it really worth 10,000 or is it really worth 100? I could put 100 on it and no one would still buy it. But if the big idea is These are $1 houses because we are building brand new international digital nomad communities in romantic parts of the world. Oh, now a local realtor is thinking globally and getting absolute wall-to-wall global PR coverage because, as Mark Cuban says, we're faster, cheaper, all of those things, better, faster, cheaper, they're all a race to the bottom. But if you can say, what is the big idea? What is the story we're telling here? What is the community we're creating? I said to other clients in Canada in real estate recently, you have great logos. You've got a great font that you use. You guys are attractive. You've got great photos. You know, you're very clear about what you do and how you do it. And yet you have absolutely no brand. They're like, what does that mean? I said, well, as Seth Godin said, if you take the logo off one company and you put it on a similar competitor, and nobody notices the difference, you've got no brand.
You got no brand.
You can't take McDonald's and put it on KFC and have people go, huh? So, so when you look at Coke and Pepsi, for instance, you think, well, in some ways you could take the Coke logo and put it on Pepsi. And we had the Pepsi Taste Challenge where they did something similar. So they have to differentiate themselves in another way. So McDonald's differentiates itself by helping kids with cancer, having the Ronald McDonald House and so on. That's a way that it says, we are like fast food. We're a family chain. Gosh, how can we go further than, say, some of the other places? We can do that. Pepsi differentiating itself from Coke says we put ourselves as progressives in the world. Not going to, some people aren't going to like it, but a lot of people are, because we want to be on the right side of history. So Pepsi, even though they got it completely wrong with Kendall Jenner with the Black Lives Matter movement, they really were trying to say, hey, we want everyone to get along. We want to be on the right side of history. We want to be progressive. We want to appeal to the younger generations who do want people to not be in war perpetually. We do want people to focus on health. We do want to focus on equity and diversion and diversity and inclusion. So if a company stands for something, it now stands out. But I say to most business owners and entrepreneurs I know, as I used to say to actors, you don't stand out by blending in. So if I say I'm just an ordinary business owner, how can I stand out? Well, already you're not going to, because you're just an ordinary business owner. But if what you mean is, listen, I'm in the position I'm in right now, I'm just like a lot of other people. I'm selling insurance, or I'm selling essential oils, or I'm selling business coaching, or whatever I'm selling. How do you stand out? Because when I hear what someone does, I immediately think of everybody else I know that does that as well. I'm looking to refer every single business to every single person on this call. But if I don't hear something different about you, then I'm going to refer the business to the person who does what you do, that I already know, that I can trust, that I've already sent business to. But if you do something different, and that might be niching down, that might be having a better story, that might be making it more personal. Julian Schnabel said, personalization is the only originality. I say it's like a thumbprint on a snowflake on a retina scan. Like, it's so uniquely you that nobody else could possibly replicate it. When I hear that, and the fact that you sell insurance, well, now anybody that suits your story, suits your personality, and is looking for insurance, I'm going to send them to you, as opposed to all of the other insurance salesmen and women that I know. I met a guy at a networking event here in LA years ago, and by the time I met him, I'd met about 8 guys that were in logistics. I don't know why, I just met a whole bunch of logistics guys. And I said to this other guy, I said, so what, normally I'd say, what do you do? And they'd say, oh, I'm in logistics. And I said to this guy, so what do you do? And he said, I move anything from anywhere on the planet to anywhere else on the planet. I was like, wow, that's amazing. And rather than say, what does that mean? I said, what's the toughest thing you've ever moved? And he said, an ostrich farm from South Africa to Australia. What does a guy do? He's in logistics.
It's true.
He's in logistics.
So that's a huge difference right there. Yeah.
That's a huge difference. I'm going to remember here. I know 1 million people in logistics, but why would I go to any one of them other than him? The guy is thinking big. The guy is executing big. The guy is growing his business better than anyone. And worst case scenario, his business is the same as everyone else's, but he's having more fun doing it.
Having more fun doing it. That's the key. That's the key. And he has personalized it. He has differentiated it. and he's connecting with people at the point of connection, which is ultimately moving things, which is, I think that's a great example. Actually, we're going to ask you that, is some examples of some of these entrepreneurs and, successful ones besides the well-known names, in local communities, if you run across other folks who have differentiated themselves well.
Examples of the woman helping lose 3 ton worth of weight, or selling houses for $1. But I had a client come to me recently who has a piece of software to help podcasters. It's called podtask.com. And the idea is to help teams work out how to do the production line of producing a podcast much easier. So he brought the platform to me to help him grow this business. And the first thing I said was, this looks awesome. Are you incorporating AI? And he's like, no, should I? And I said, well, let me put it this way. If you don't, you're already dead on arrival, because there's so many production management and task management pieces of software out there that are already, they've been around forever, and their next step can only be to incorporate artificial intelligence in a way that makes sense for their platform. That even though yours is specifically for podcasting, if you don't get in on the ground floor right now, you're going to be left behind. And so to his credit, and he's a coder, so he got right into it straight away. He got the APIs from OpenAI and plugged stuff straight in, and I gave him ideas and he took off with those, and then he got ideas from the community, and now he can transcribe your call and create your artificial intelligence show notes for you, summarize things, write emails to pitch for you to be on other people's shows, pitch for them to be on your show. With one click, you can create the email. With another click, it emails a list of people that would be in your niche, or vice versa. Like that's a dude on his own, piece of software in his head that would have been stillborn had he not thought far enough ahead to say, at the very least, incorporate AI. We're not even talking about whatever comes beyond that, like a 12 million year plan, but we're talking about, you're exhausted having built this software, but you cannot stop there. It cannot be born outdated. So you must plan for that future and be the leader of that future. And thankfully, he wants to be the leader of that. Some people I talk to, they don't. They're just like, no, we just want to make a couple of extra sales. No, to be the leader of that, and he's going to be, I think.
Well, I think that takes to the next big question is on that, right? You mentioned AI, and I think to me, AI, incorporating that is innovation in your business today, right? So let's talk about innovation. What role does innovation play then in the process of thinking big, and achieving substantial growth? Because it's, you got to differentiate, but at the end of the day, the entrepreneurs have to foster a culture of innovation, because you and I know, without thinking, what's happening in the next 5 or 10 years, and then putting it in play today, for your customers. I mean, to me, successfully, that's how companies grow. So maybe share some thoughts on that as to how important innovation is then, and how do entrepreneurs think about innovation or innovating, because you have to think about future trend, but importantly, bring it back home today so that our customers can benefit today from those.
Definitely. So Raymond Loewy, who is credited as being the designer of the 20th century, he designed the Greyhound bus, the Coke bottle, the Lucky Strike cigarettes. He had his MAYA principle, M-A-Y-A, and that stood for most advanced yet acceptable. And when you look at Google Glass, it was by far the most advanced thing that we'd ever seen, and yet it was unacceptable to commute to the world, because people couldn't understand how this could not be used by creepy men in bars recording women, as they walk upstairs. Like, it was completely unacceptable, even though it was the most advanced. And if you look at most of what Google does, most of what Google does is the most advanced and yet completely unacceptable. They're only now kind of truly catching up. Like, if you look at Duplex. I think it was called Duplex, which was the artificial robot that would call and book restaurants for you. It was completely unacceptable. They were just so far advanced. And then the rest of the world had to catch up with what was acceptable for them to come back and say, hey, we thought of it first. Crypto and blockchain are exactly the same. It's the most advanced, and in many ways, blockchain technology is the solution to a lot of our problems for attribution and truth and objectivity, but it's completely unacceptable to society because it's so unstable. Like crypto is so unstable, and it's unacceptable for society because they can't help but see that crypto is a way to buy things on the black market. Like that's all they see. And it doesn't matter whether this is true or not. Yep. So coming back to your question about, or long answer to your short question about innovation, you cannot be most advanced and not acceptable. You can't be acceptable and not most advanced. You have to be most advanced yet acceptable. And the only way to do that is to have some sort of a lab or a clinic or a space like Google actually sets aside, where every day or every week people can work on something which doesn't have to make money. It doesn't have to be a bullseye. It doesn't have to win. So you say locally, let's say you have a business, you're in the accounting business. If you don't ever set aside time for everyone to sit around and have a cup of tea and some cake and talk about what this business could be, if you never set that aside, guess what? You're never going to grow. And if you do, it's going to be incidental or accidental. And then a pandemic's going to hit and then you're going to be smashed. There's going to be no intentionality to it. So you absolutely must set aside space. And that space is not when they're on the weekend or when they go home at night. I'm an entrepreneur. If I'm working for an accounting firm, I will be doing that anyway, but you can't rely on having people like me in the institution, because as soon as I do, I'm out the door starting my own company. So if you want to have that innovation, you have to create some sort of an incubator or some sort of a lab or some sort of a playground within your paid time as a company, as a firm, as a business, where you allow people to do stuff that doesn't need to help the bottom line. In the film industry, the biggest difference that has been made in the last 100 years with film and TV was when something like Village and Warner Brothers and Fox Searchlight and so on started to have their little indie platforms, because they would see that something like Blair Witch Project would cost $50,000 to make and yet make $150 million.
Yeah, 100 million plus.
Would cost $1 million and it would make $600 million back. So they were like, if we actually went out there and we invested in $100 million films or $500,000 films, if only one of them hits it big, we're easily going to make our money back. And that became a massive turning point in the industry, where studios now could rely on making a lot more money. And that wasn't even their studio. That was the offshoot of the studio. That was the thing that was like experimental. And 99% of stuff did not make money. But the one that did would make hundreds of millions of dollars and pay back everything else. So that's what I would say is, if you are an ordinary person in your everyday life and you want extraordinary results, then you need to do something different. And at least is you need to create the space in people's paid time. You need to invite them to be curious. You need to not knock down every idea that they had. You need to encourage them to do that, and know that when you walk away from that space, if nothing comes out of it that grows your business or makes you more money, you go, no worries. It might next year. It might next week. It might in a millennia, but it won't happen immediately. And if I'm relying on that, I shouldn't be doing it in the first place. I should just be sticking to growing by, 1% every whatever. You're not going to get explosive growth unless you do something dramatically different in your business.
That's a very, very important point right there. And I have one last question before we open it up for audience here, because I'm sure there have a lot of questions for you, Paul. Intimidation, right? It's great to think big. It's great to dream big and say, okay, let's put this in motion. But the very thought of doing all that, it could be quite intimidating, both for aspiring entrepreneurs as well as even the seasoned ones, right? Because in a way, you're asking them to change their habits, right? You're saying, don't be in that box that you have created. Step out of the box and do something different. So how do we do that? I mean, what are some recommendations for them to actually break that and say, look, this is the approach to take, in a meaningful way, in a shared risk way, in a calculated way? How do we do that?
Well, the very first step is that you need to know that your imagination is free. Your imagination is painless. So if you imagine something, if you take the time and you imagine something, it's not going to cost you a single brass razoo. There are lots of people that have imagined big things and they've not followed through on them. There are lots of people that have imagined big things and they've screwed it up, but there's no one that's done massive, significant stuff without first imagining it. Like nobody who created, like Travis, when he created Uber, was not sitting there going, I would like to just hire out a car and make an extra $50 a week. Like clearly that dude and all of his friends sat around in a bar, probably on a rooftop somewhere with cocktails in their hand, dressed to the nines, and said to each other, wouldn't it be awesome to own this city? Now, if they wake up in the morning and they don't own New York, oh well, like you literally haven't lost anything. But nobody who did anything massive, gargantuan, significant, even in their own world, got there without first going through the free and easy part of imagining what's possible. So the first thing people need to do is they need to imagine it. I say to people all the time, I got so many bits and pieces of paper and stuff I've written down that is just I will build an entire website, funnel, business, domain name overnight to disprove that this is a functioning business. And if it is, I'm like, oh, wow, cool. But like it costs me a night, whatever. I've got the software, I can build it. I know how to do it. I don't have to pay someone else to do it. But that's how I do it, to visualize it, to say, is this viable? But if I try and do that with a minute here and a minute there, whenever I can steal the time over the next year, it's like trying to, break through a brick floor with an eyedropper every week. Like it's just never going to happen. So you have to allow yourself the space. You have to allow yourself to accept that the imagination is free. It's not going to cost you anything except a little bit of time. And you're not even taking any risks at this point. Like there's no risk whatsoever. And if you can't say, I'm working in insurance, but man, wouldn't it be amazing to be able to do this like the 4-hour work week? Wouldn't it be great? Well, straight away, that's impossible. Well, it's not impossible. Clearly, it's not impossible. There's a whole book written about it, and there's many people making millions of dollars from a 4-hour work week. Do you want that? Yeah, but it's not possible. Well, ultimately, use your imagination. What if it were possible? What would it be like? What would it feel like? We can work out the how and the what and how to do it down the track. But first of all, we have to be able to go there in our minds. And as an actor, when I used to act and when I would teach actors, the biggest problem with them taking notes most of the time was that they couldn't imagine what I was going for. And I said, you don't need to, you just need to do it. Just do it. Just give it a crack. It'll take you a second to do it. If it doesn't work, we'll all know. And if it works, it'll work. But I'm not going to sit here for an hour and argue with you about whether it's possible or not. I can create 5 businesses with websites and funnels and marketing copy and everything in a week. And one of them is going to be fantastic. But if someone doesn't finish their website over 4 years, even if it's the most brilliant idea in the world, it's never going to get done. You need to create the space. You need to imagine it's possible. You know it's free. And then you need to fail fast. Just fail fast.
I think folks have fear of failing. So I hear what you're saying. On that note, I want to take some questions from the audience. We didn't get to all the questions for Paul, especially things like managing risk along the process, along the way. But I'd rather have audience ask you that, and see. So go ahead, please. Just unmute your mic and ask your questions. Fire away.
Hi, this is Ruben Alvarez. I want to jump in because I'm jumping up and down over here.
Oh, hey, Ruben, that's great.
I have no ideas. I've been stuck for the last 6 months. I have this great product. And as entrepreneurs, it's very hard to talk to other entrepreneurs because they're so busy doing things, and everybody else says you're freaking crazy. You can't do that. But you know, thank you for explaining differentiation with niche, because now my tagline is going to be the man with the $1 billion list.
Oh, nice.
As soon as I open up,
that's what stood out when you introduced yourself. That's exactly what stood out.
Exactly.
So
how do you do that? I have the movers and shakers, the influential and grassroots Latinos in Orange County, and I've been developing this for the last 23 years. So I'm not the Johnny come lately with TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook. I've been established. So thank you so much. Now I'm going to be able to develop my marketing materials and my pitch with that. And thank you so much, Sanjay. This has been awesome.
I love it, Ruben. Don't get distracted by that other stuff. Focus on, if it is your email list, just focus on that. Frank Kern said to one of his clients at one point, how do you make most of your money? The guy was like, well, I'm thinking about getting into this and that. And he goes, no, how do you make most of your money? He said, emails. And he goes, then I've got an idea for you. Send more emails. The guy was getting distracted and he's like, just send twice as many emails. You'll make twice as much bloody money.
Really good, Dr. Audrey, you had a question. Great to see you.
First of all, yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Sanjay. This is fantastic. I'm so glad I was able to jump in. I had another meeting before, but this was outstanding. Focus, though, what you just said, Paul, it's about focus. I run into that so often with entrepreneurs because they tend to have this idea. They make two big mistakes. Everyone is not your market. And number two, you cannot accomplish everything at the same time. You don't eat an elephant all at once. You absolutely have to decide what part you're going to attack and be all in on that part until you get to the outcomes, you know. And I find myself having that conversation with people. People will look at me and they see the companies, the organizations that I work with, and they say, oh, you've done everything. And I said, no, you're wrong. You're reading my data wrong. I've done 3 things everywhere I've gone. I've addressed customers, capacity, and capital. That's what I do. The various organizations, they all need that solution. So I'm a master of that. It doesn't matter. I'm not a master of all of their different widgets. I'm a master of capital, customers, and capacity. Right.
And the great thing is when you can get to know other people that are masters of what they do, which is complementary to you, you never fear, I have to sell this person or close this person, because you go, oh, just talk to Steph. Like, she'll sort you out. Like, I don't need to try and pretend I can do what you do when you do that. So the more kind of specific that we can be about what it is that we do, the easier it is to refer business.
Absolutely.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Good to see you, Dr. Audrey. Looking great there. Janki, you had a question. Janki, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I would like to introduce our company. I was missing out from earlier. We are IT-based company and having a 15 years of experience, and we are doing a development in the web-based as well as for the IoT and working for the complex projects. So if anyone have a requirement, then we are open for that. And thank you so much for this fantastic meeting. And I was really enjoying and learn a lot of things from that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Janki. And thanks for telling us about your company. Gaurav, go ahead, Gaurav. Your question?
So I just want to say thanks, Paul. I think it was very insightful, and just taking it from the vision to ideas and then getting into execution. I think it kind of just validates what we are doing with OKRs, right? Objective key results, to take the whole vision on the annual basis and then break it down into pieces so that you can have them. But it's very important to think about it and get into tangible results. So I would love to connect with you, Sanjay. It would be great if you can make that connection with Paul and take it a step further, because we are also very purpose driven, and our purpose is to take it to as many people as we can. And we've actually created a software for that, because it's a discipline thing. I've heard that if you want to go.
I think we lost you, Gaurav.
Go. If you want to go.
It's a go. Or, yeah, it was interesting, the timing of
it. Oh, he's back. No, here we are.
Ravi back.
Sorry. So, yeah, I was just going to say that if you want to take care of your health, you want to hit the gym 20 minutes a day, then 10 hours in 2 days and take care of it, right? So that's the discipline that we are trying to bring in. So would love to collaborate and see what we can do there, Paul, but very insightful. I have no questions. I just want to thank you for the session. And Sanjay, thanks for putting this together, yeah?
Thanks, Gaurav. I think, Sanela, you had a question? I see
Yeah,
a
just-
half-raised hand.
Just real quickly, Paul and everybody. So the quick hack per se for, for someone to do the hack in the mind, because it's all in the mindset, is goals, growth, and execution. Putting these three together to actually create and execute the plan, because everybody's talking about, oh, I have a business plan, 3 years, 5. None of that stuff, because if you don't execute what you put on that plan, none of that stuff is going to happen. So what's your fastest, biggest cheat sheet hack of making it actually everyday mantra or life-changing opportunity for someone to say, hey, look, I'm a goal-oriented, I'm a growth-oriented, and I'm execution-oriented, because without those are the three main components in order for you to explode and go bigger. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I'd say the three you've mentioned are the last three. So I would work with actors where they would say, oh yeah, we learned all about actions and objectives, let's just get into the emotion. And I'm like, but before you start with your actions and objectives, and before you start with play and curiosity, there's nothing to plan, so there's no goals to have. I don't start with a goal. I start with curiosity. I start with openness. I create space and time. And if this sounds like, yes, but get to the good stuff, then you're like the actors saying, can we get past the actions and objectives? You must get excited about the openness, the free time, the curiosity, the play, with no demands on that coming to fruition. You have to be excited about that first. Once you're excited about that, then you can start talking about, great, now out of all of the options we have, what do you choose as a goal? As Steph says, well, what do we focus on now? We can focus on, but there's no point focusing on anything. By definition, if you focus, you're not paying attention to anything else. You can't be curious if you're only focusing on one thing right now. So what I've said for years as a writer, as a director, as an actor, as a producer, as a speaker, as a coach, whatever, is that I basically look at patterns and I destroy them. And then I look where there are no patterns and I create them. And then I continue that process of creation and destruction until a new form is made, which is how the earth was created, which is, there's so many different things in life that have been formed into what they are now, effectively by you go to the gym and you tear those fibers, and the fibers grow larger, wider apart, and they re-knit, and you get a stronger muscle. So we must start, first of all, by, I wonder what it would be like, what's under that rock? I don't have a goal to open the rock and find gold underneath it. And then, no. I'm just curious what's under the rock. I'm just curious what happens if I pull this watch apart. I'm just curious, like as kids, we're playing and we're doing that all the time. So we must, and I know I'm going over it again and again, because this is exactly the bit that we all skip over, which is why we are ordinary, average people, most of us, even if we're good at what we do. We are not exceptional because we skip over that part of what's the free space, what's the curiosity. So how to do it every day. Some people would do it with a diary. Some people would do it with journaling. Some people would do it by being a part of a group where you share that idea. Some people would do it by saying, every day I'm going to post on social media my thoughts, or have a YouTube channel, or if you want it to be private, just make notes of it, but set aside time. There was a guy when I was a kid skipping school. At one point I stayed home and was watching daytime TV, and there was a guy interviewing a self-made multi-millionaire. And the guy said to him, how did you become so successful? He said, well, every day I set aside an hour of prayer time. And the guy said, oh, are you religious? And he goes, no, but if I call it anything else, people keep knocking on the door. So his whole thing was he dedicated time that was exclusively dedicated to doing nothing. So the guy would say, the interviewer would say, so you meditate? He goes, no, I don't meditate. What do you do? I do nothing. So you read a book? No, I do nothing. So you're exploring, allowing your thoughts? He goes, no, I'm trying to do nothing, because only in that vacuum. nature abhors a vacuum, so it will fill it with whatever the hell is nearest. If we create a vacuum and we disallow all of the stuff we don't want in that vacuum, then without having a goal to suck in something we do want, all that physics will tell us is that it will eventually suck in something we want, as long as we don't put social media on it, as long as we don't put procrastination on it, as long as we don't sit in front of Netflix nonstop. So as long as we create that vacuum, so the first thing every day that you need to do is you need to create a vacuum, and you need to put it in your diary, in your calendar, and nobody can disturb it. It cannot change. You can do it at different times of the day if you can do it. But I found when I was back in Australia and I was nursing my parents, my mum had just passed and I was looking after my dad, I found that if I did not put 2 hours in my calendar between 4 and 6 in summertime for me in Australia, if I didn't put that time just as the word beach, and I didn't even have to go to the beach, but I said to my dad, every day between these hours, I'm going to the beach, whether it's raining, hailing, shining, whether there's a civil war, I'm going to the beach between 4 and 6 every single day. And guess what? I went to the beach every single day. I'd be standing in the rain and the storm, massive swell, and I'm standing there with tears streaming down my face, just like the poster of Platoon. And there's a beautiful lighthouse on the hill, and all of a sudden the sun comes out and a beautiful rainbow appears. How on earth could I possibly have experienced that transition in my life to get over growth, to discover who my dream client is, to grow my business? How could I have had that if I did not force myself to create space? So we have to create space. And in that space, we allow curiosity and inspiration to hit us. Now, at that point, exactly, maybe you want to choose some goals. Maybe you want to set that stuff. And Sanjay, you were great at trying to get me to say, how do we do it? But I think that's a part B if anyone is interested. I would love to do that with people.
We are going to part people. Sure.
I'll probably spend 40% of that time repeating this again, because we do forget. And I'll say to everyone, did you put that time in your calendar? And everyone will be like, oh, yeah, sorry, I've got to go. But only when you do that can you start to plan and so on, because otherwise you've got a 3, 5, 10-year plan. What's it based on? It's not based on your curiosity of what's possible. It's based on exactly what you know can happen. So the best that you're going to get, if you're lucky, is exactly what you're planning to happen. But you're not going to be inspired by anything greater than that, or greater than yourself, or greater than what your competitors are doing in the marketplace. Long answer, short question. I hope I got there eventually.
Yeah. So the quick hack is force yourself to create the brain expansion or in order to transform, not necessarily transition, because everything gets mixed up with transition versus transformation. And I got my answer. I hope that everybody else got it too. Thanks.
Yeah. So definitely create that space, and then in that space, resist all the things you don't want to get sucked into that. And then if nothing gets sucked into it, oh, well, great. That's meditation maybe. But if something gets sucked into it, then it's not what you hate. It'll be something surprising that you love.
Well, we could go on with Paul, I'm pretty sure, through the whole afternoon, but that's not the intent, Paul. So I want to thank you for being here with us. I think a lot of us will agree here that this was quite inspiring. I think it was quite eye-opening, actually. And ultimately, I think it's transformational, right? So I think a lot of what you said here today, what you shared from real-life examples, from your own experiences, I believe we can put a lot of this into play. What I would love to do, Paul, is invite you back for a follow-up session or two.
No, not interested. Everyone was so horrible to me.
I know.
That'd be great.
You love people when they challenge you, Paul. So I'm going to take that as a compliment.
So, one thing that I would suggest that we do maybe next time is some people in advance, you get to choose, Sanjay, like a handful of people who specifically put up, here's my business, this is what I do, this is what I'm struggling with, or here are some ideas I've got, and we kind of workshop those specific ideas so we can put that into practice. I think that'd be a good way to do it.
I think that'll be a great session. Like we do maybe 2 or 3 masterminds for business owners who are willing to step up and share where they would like us to help you with. So I think that'll be a great session as a follow-up. Would love to do that, Paul. Thank you again for joining today and sharing your insights. thank you, folks from all over the world, for joining today as well and asking questions, staying with us, and have a wonderful rest of the week. And connect with me. I'll be happy to connect, Paul with you through LinkedIn as well as through oGoing. And happy innovating, happy creativity, and definitely, as Paul would say, find that space.
Paul, it might be easier if you just put on your LinkedIn on the chat for people to connect with you.
Sure, let me do that. And also, if you look up Dreaming for a Living, www.dreamingforaliving.com, you will find me there as well.
Paul, you had comments, so I didn't want to interrupt you. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So there's my website, LinkedIn.
Well, you can take LinkedIn from there. That's fine.
True. Yes, you can get me on there from LinkedIn. Great, thank you, everybody.
Paul, you had
thank you.
last thought, so go ahead, please. I didn't want to interrupt you. You were about to share something.
Me?
Yes, a quote.
As
maybe
my
a
mother
quote.
would say, as my mother would say, it was probably a lie. Don't worry about it. If you can't remember, it was probably a lie. Oh, good. There'll be more later. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Sanjay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. Thank you.
Sanjay.